All right, thanks so much for joining us once again on the Bright Side, Election Day edition 2012. Hopefully you guys all go out and participate. And for those of you in California, I encourage you all to vote yes on Proposition 37, the GMO labeling initiative that we talked about yesterday. Check out the archive page at brightsideben.com. If you missed the program, we had a nice interview with Stacey Malkin of California Right to Know, the folks who are encouraging everybody in California to vote yes on Prop 37. If you're, for some reason, are on the fence, I don't know why you would be, but if you are, for some reason, on the fence, please, please, please don't be fooled by the obfuscation and confusion that's being promoted by the Monsanto and BASF-supported no on Prop 37, folks. Monsanto, DuPont, BASF, Bayer, among the most evil, nefarious, anti-human being companies on the planet, are all behind this no on Prop 37, and please do not be fooled. All right, today I want to talk about a health condition that, according to at least one medical journal, affects nearly 30 million people at some time in their lives, costs exceeding over $50 billion, and that is a mental health condition that is generically termed anxiety. Now, anxiety, as defined by Dr. Susan Lark in her book Anxiety and Stress, is, quote, a state of being uneasy, apprehensive, or worried about what may happen, or alternatively as, quote, a feeling of being powerless or unable to cope with threatening events, unquote, both of which are characterized by physical symptoms, physical tension, physical symptoms in general, and both of these descriptions of anxiety come in various forms. According to WebMD, there's actually 6 different forms of anxiety disorders, including panic disorder, which is a condition where people get hit with random, out-of-the-blue anxiety attacks that don't seem to be connected to any causes. These attacks are marked by various distressing symptoms, including sweating and body heat, chest pain, heart palpitations, similar to a heart attack. Mitral valve prolapse, which affects so many people, may be related to panic disorders. Mitral valve prolapse issues are certainly related to activation of the stress nervous system. If you're dealing with mitral valve prolapse, you may want to consider anti-anxiety strategies, the anti-anxiety strategies that we'll talk about here in a little bit. A second type of anxiety disorder is OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder, which is associated with chronic repeated thoughts and ritualistic type behaviors or obsessions. People who are dealing with OCD, anxiety illness, will repeatedly check their doors to see if they're locked, or repeatedly wash their hands, or repeatedly check their stove, or count their money, or constantly have to arrange and rearrange things. Many OCD patients will have tics of some kind of movement disorder, and some researchers believe there may be a link between OCD and Tourette's syndrome. Up to 50% of folks who have Tourette's syndrome also have OCD. Tourette's syndrome is a nerve disorder where you get involuntary repeated movements or tics. Interestingly, as irrational as some of the behaviors OCD patients exhibit may be, as it turns out, OCD is actually associated with above-average intelligence and high-performing personality traits like well-developed attention to detail, planning, a sense of responsibility, and great patience when it comes to making decisions. These are all characteristics that OCD patients tend to exhibit, even though OCD is obviously a kind of irrational sort of behavior. The third type of anxiety disorder is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. This is an anxiety condition that's connected to traumatic experiences. It's something that victims or witnesses of violent crimes or natural disasters suffer from. Folks who are dealing back east with Hurricane Sandy are at risk for having PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Soldiers returning from battle also commonly will have PTSD, according to an article on CNN.com. Over 30%, 1 out of 3 Iraq veterans experience PTSD that's severe enough to affect their jobs or their relationships or their home lives. A fourth type of anxiety, according to the folks at WebMD, is something called social anxiety disorder, and this is characterized by an intense fear of social situations. It may be connected, at least in some people, to panic attacks. People who have social anxiety disorder will find themselves worrying excessively about being in normal social situations, being judged by others, being embarrassed, being humiliated, or even just thinking about being in these kinds of situations can trigger an anxiety attack in someone who is prone towards social anxiety disorder. And then there are specific phobias, things that are related to crowds or snakes or heights, fear of heights, can trigger anxiety attacks, fear of public speaking, can trigger anxiety attacks in otherwise healthy people. And lastly, there's something called general anxiety disorder, which involves worry and fear and tension, and even full-blown panic that people live with 24/7. Every minute of the day, people will deal with some kind of worry or fear or tension if they have general anxiety disorder, even if there's no triggering event. So those are the basic types of anxiety disorders. Before we get into some of the nutritional strategies for dealing with anxiety, I want to be very clear about something. If you have any kind of emotional issue or psychological trauma that you're dealing with, you're not going to be able to simply take a supplement or simply take a formula that's going to heal that trauma. In other words, if you happen to witness a horrible event, or even worse, if you've been a victim of some kind of assault, or you're coming home from a war, or whatever your flavor of anxiety disorder is, you're probably not going to be able to heal from the effects of that traumatic event or to eliminate the symptoms simply by taking a nutritional supplement. However, that being said, if you are confronting anxiety issues, nutritional deficiencies, and poor food choices can exacerbate the problem, can make the problem worse. And in this way, using the nutritional strategies and dietary strategies that we're going to talk about here later on in the program and a little bit tomorrow, using these kinds of strategies can make a huge, huge difference. You're not going to eliminate psychological or emotional or spiritual or mental crises by using nutritional supplements, but understanding how to use nutritional supplements and understanding how to use dietary strategies can make a big difference. We'll tell you about some of these ideas when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. Our number is 866-582-9933. We're coming back at you with more good health information right after this break.
The following program is a rebroadcast of a previously aired show.
All right, so we're talking about anxiety issues. I remember a guy I used to know back in the 1990s. His name was Greg. He was a mental health patient. He was dealing with not just anxiety issues, social anxiety issues, but he also had a mild case of schizophrenia. Greg was a good guy, and he was hyperactive. He was jittery. He was a bit delusional, but he's a good guy. He's a smart guy too. He was an outpatient at the mental health center in Boulder, and he liked to hang out at this health food store that I used to go to every morning, Alfalfa's. Alfalfa's unfortunately is no longer around. It was a wonderful health food store back in the 90s, and I would go in there every morning, and I would go get my breakfast juice. And while I would wait to get my juice, I would end up hanging out with Greg, and Greg would be drinking his big, huge 64-ounce Coke, which he would have every morning, and him and I would just chat a little. Greg was definitely a little crazy, but he was interesting to talk to, and he was a reasonably intelligent guy. So one day I got to talking to Greg about his schizophrenia. He was diagnosed schizophrenic as well as suffering from anxiety. And I started talking to him. He knew I was a pharmacist. And somehow we ended up talking about his medication. And I actually have a background in psychiatric pharmacy, so I knew a little bit about psychiatric meds. And Greg confided in me how much he hated taking his medication. So I got this idea, and I walked Greg over to the salad bar, and I picked stuff out for him. We concentrated on green veggies and protein, eggs and tuna fish, lots of sea salt and lots of spices, lots of oil. And from that day forward, every morning that I saw Greg, he and I would have this little ritual where I would order my juice and drink down my juice, and Greg would get a salad. He wouldn't drink his Coke, and we would just hang out for 15 or 20 minutes before I went to work. And anyway, long story short, within a week, Greg was like a new person. His voice was stronger. His voice was clearer. He was less delusional. He was making more sense, and eventually he had weaned himself off of most of his meds. He wasn't completely recovered. He was still on some medication, but the difference in his behavior and in his communication skills were obvious, and they were dramatic. The differences were dramatic. And when you think about it, that should come as no surprise, because while emotional and psychological issues may not be directly caused by nutritional and dietary factors, the kind of nutrients you get or don't get, the kind of foods you're eating or not eating, can't help but affect every single system of the body, including and especially the brain. The brain is using up energy faster than any other system in the body. So if you are dealing with nutritional deficiencies or you're making poor dietary choices, it can't help but affect your brain, and it can't help but have impacts on anxiety. I'm not telling you that you're going to be able to completely cure yourself using nutrition and using dietary strategies, but I am telling you that you can make a heck of a big difference if you're dealing with any kind of anxiety disorder. So what can you do if you're one of the tens of millions of Americans who are dealing with anxiety issues? Well, probably the single most important thing you can do to immediately address anxiety, and I'm talking immediately, I'm talking within seconds, to address anxiety issues, no matter what kind of anxiety you're dealing with, PTSD or OCD or social anxiety disorder, or phobias, whatever. The single most important thing you can do to immediately address these kinds of issues is to learn how to turn on, how to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest, relaxation nervous system. At the risk of boring some of you guys, I'll just say it again. You got two kinds of nervous systems in the body. You have an emergency nervous system, a survival nervous system, a stress nervous system, whatever you want to call it. Technically, it's called the sympathetic nervous system. And you have a rest and digest relaxation nervous system. Technically, it's called the parasympathetic nervous system. By far and away, the large majority of activity should be occurring via parasympathetic rest and digest relaxation nervous system activation. Anxiety, from a neurological perspective, involves, obviously, if you think about it, it's obvious, anxiety involves activation of the body's emergency response system, which opposes this rest and digest nervous system, this relaxation nervous system. So many of the health crises that we are dealing with are nothing more than overactivation of this stress nervous system. I don't know how I can simplify it any more than that. And one of the most important concepts of health and wellness that we talk about here on the bright side is this idea that health is simple. It is not complicated. The medical priests want us to be confused. They want us to be overwhelmed. Don't fall for it. Health is not complicated, folks. One of the simplest ways that you can distinguish health from not health, or health from disease, is by distinguishing the stress response from the relaxation response. I just got a letter today from a gal who I talked to her a couple weeks ago about hot flashes, and I can't seem to find the letter now, but she sent me a update on her hot flashes. Here it is. She says, Ben, we talked on the phone about a month ago. I've been doing everything you said. It's not working. I got the progesterone cream from my doctor. It's not working. Well, this is a gal who was complaining about hot flashes. Folks, if you have hot flashes, nothing says stress response more clearly and more loudly and more definitively than hot flashes. Hot flashes are a stress response. If you're going through menopause and you're dealing with this kind of thing, or any kind of menopausal issues, you are dealing with a classic sign, a classic manifestation of the stress response, and you can't just rub a cream on and your stress response will disappear. That's not how it works. You got to learn how to activate the rest and digest relaxation nervous system, and the first thing to do, the most important thing to do to turn this relaxation nervous system on, and the best way to deal with anxiety, is to do the deep breathing thing. And I'm sorry to be just pounding on this deep breathing idea, but it is so important. If you're dealing with panic attacks or social anxiety disorder, learn to belly breathe, deep breathe. Make sure you do it slowly. Slowly is a key, and make sure you do it evenly. Many people who suffer from panic and anxiety attacks, they'll tell you right before their attacks start, they get shortness of breath, they get a smothering sensation, which makes perfect sense. If you understand how the stress nervous system works, it interprets deficiencies in oxygen as a major emergency. So as soon as your blood oxygen levels drop and your carbon dioxide levels rise, boom, you go into stress response. Now, whether or not the shortness of breath causes the panic attacks or the panic attacks causes the shortness of breath is a chicken and egg situation, but the fact remains that deep, Slow breathing is the single best way to curtail or even prevent the occurrence of any kind of anxiety attack. And be very careful about breathing too fast. This can cause an accumulation of carbon dioxide and can actually make your anxiety and panic attacks even worse. Slowly and deeply and always in and out through the nose, belly out on the inhale, belly in on the exhale. There's so much more to talk about when it comes to anxiety and panic attacks. I'll tell you about one more strategy you can use when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're coming back at you right after this. Hi, we're back on the bright side. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're talking about anxiety. We'll be doing that today and we'll do it tomorrow. If you're on hold, hang tight. We'll get to your phone calls here in just a minute. I want to tell you about a second great way that you can take care of panic attacks or anxiety attacks. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're turning on your parasympathetic nervous system by practicing deep breathing techniques. Secondly, the second most important thing you can do if you're dealing with anxiety issues is you want to avoid low blood sugar, hypoglycemia. When you eat anything that causes your insulin levels to rise quickly, you run a big time risk of causing your blood sugar to drop precipitously fast. And one of the fastest ways, one of the surefire ways to activate your stress nervous system, your survival nervous system, next to a drop in blood oxygen, one of the fastest ways is to drop your blood sugar. As soon as the hypoglycemic, the low blood sugar signal is received by your survival nervous system or your survival system in the brain, and then your adrenal glands, you get a big shot of stress hormone cortisol into the blood, and that alone is all that's required to trigger a panic attack. If you're one of the millions of folks who are dealing with anxiety issues, it becomes super, super, super important for you to stay away from insulin-spiking foods, those fast-burning, sugary foods that we're always talking about here on the bright side. Desserts, sodas, fruit juices, refined flour products, cereals, breads, pastas, snack bars, anything you buy in a fast food restaurant, pretty much anything you buy in a fast food restaurant is going to, you're going to run the risk of dropping your blood sugar fast, causing cortisol to come out in the blood, and initiating a stress response. So first thing you want to do, you want to make sure you're practicing deep breathing. If you're shallow breathing, or if you're a chest breather, you run a big time risk of initiating a panic attack or an anxiety attack. The second thing you want to do is you want to make sure you stabilize your blood sugar. You do not want to go into hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. Go for protein. Protein will break down slowly in the body. It has a filling effect. It has a stabilizing effect. It has a grounding effect. And interestingly, many of the nutritional supplements that are associated with relieving anxiety are also nutritional supplements that help stabilize blood sugar, and this is no coincidence. Stabilizing blood sugar, keeping your blood sugar even, avoiding low blood sugar and hypoglycemic attacks is key to reducing anxiety. Tomorrow, we'll tell you about some other strategies for keeping your anxiety down, for reducing anxiety, for avoiding panic attacks and anxiety attacks, and we'll also talk about nutritional supplements that you can use if you are one of the millions of folks who are dealing with anxiety. We'll do that tomorrow. Now it's time to go to our phones. 866-582-9933 is our number. Our first phone call of the day. Let's go off to Minnesota and welcome Michael to the bright side. What is up, Michael?
Hi, Pharmacist Ben.
Greetings.
My daughter, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and she's losing her hair. Her hairline has receded back, to and I believe past her ears this morning. I called and I talked to Dr. Glidden yesterday on his show.
Okay.
I didn't get to respond, and I had previously done everything that he suggested, with the exception of talking to a pharmacist.
Okay. What did he tell you?
It seems as though, he told me to do the research, and I had already done the research on, she had an injection of Rocephin for a series of fevers that she had had.
Okay.
And I'm against it. I didn't know about it until after she had it. But in any case,
did you notice anything? Did you notice it? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
He suggested a healthy starter pack and liquid selenium and the nightly something from Longevity. I'm a member of Longevity. I've been on the supplements for about 18 months. However, my spouse and I are not on the same page with this. She's not on board with supplements. And
Put her on. Put your spouse on. Let me talk to her. We'll get her straightened out.
Well, she's not here. She's not here. I'm kind of at work, and I'm doing this at work. But in any case,
I'm just pulling your leg. But if she called me, we would straighten her right out. Let me tell you, Michael.
Well, I'll try to make that happen.
You don't even need to... Go ahead.
in any case, alopecia seems to be a topic that's coming up. And my question to you is, what triggers alopecia?
Okay.
And I know Dr. Wallach talks about autoimmune diseases not actually being autoimmune diseases. They're mineral deficiencies.
Well,
and so what really causes alopecia? And if this is some sort of alopecia, how do we relieve it?
Okay, well, a couple things. First of all, I don't want to get into Dr. Glidden or Dr. Wallach. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. This is how I look at it. If you've listened to me on the bright side, I'm always trying to simplify things. I want to simplify health. And one of the easiest ways to simplify health conditions is into anabolism and catabolism, which are two fancy ways of saying build up and break down. Build up and break down. Anabolism means build up. Catabolism means break down. Together, they make up metabolism, which is the sum total of all the chemistry in the body. When your body is not doing what it should be doing, and alopecia, which is a fancy way of saying baldness, when your body is not doing what it should be doing, including baldness, alopecia, your body is in net breakdown mode. It's just like when you're in business, okay? If you're in a business, it doesn't matter how much money you're spending, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, it matters what you got at the bottom line at the end of the day. So in a business, you're either net in the red or net in the black, even though at any given moment you may be spending money or making money. At the end of the day, you're either net in the red or net in the black. And the same thing is true with the body. At the end of the day, your body is either net in the red or net in the black. If you're dealing with any kind of health crisis, guess what? You're net in the red. And it's as simple as that. Baldness and alopecia are unusual in a child because children are typically in the black. They're not in the red. Children are typically going to be highly anabolic. They're going to be building things. So if you have a child who is going through alopecia issues, there's a big problem in the sense that she is unusually rare. She's suffering from an unusual condition for a child, which is being net in the red. Does that make sense so far, Michael?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so we got it. The simple answer, very simple answer. We got to figure out, why is she not anabolic? Why is she not in the black? Why is she in the red? Now, there's many reasons for this. One thing is stress. Now, when the body is under stress, it shuts down all growth and repair. Stress hormone cortisol, and also to a certain extent the stress hormones estrogen and serotonin, can also have an effect. So one issue can be some kind of stress that's going on. Those stresses, that stress can be a psychological stress or it can be a physiologic stress. However, without having some more pieces to the puzzle, we can't figure out what is causing that stress. The hair problem is not the problem. That's the symptom of the problem. Does that make sense, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the hair issue is not the issue. That's the symptom. It's the fruit of the tree. We want to go to the root of the tree. You can't heal a diseased tree by spraying something on the leaves or by fixing the fruit. You got to fix the root. So we got to find some more symptoms if we're going to figure out what's causing the problem. Do you notice, for example, any digestive issues? Because that's always the first thing to focus on. Bowel movement problems, gas, bloating. Go ahead.
Have not noticed any of that. She has gotten hiccups on and off.
Okay, well, that's not quite a digestive problem, but that may be related. So ask your wife. It's going to be tough to get it from a little girl maybe, but kind of probe, ask some key questions, check her bowel movements, see if you notice she's holding her belly a little bit. Pay close attention because that's a classic stressor, and it's very unusual for somebody to have some kind of symptom in the body without having a digestive issue. That's the first thing to think about. Then there's also thyroid issues. Hang tight, Michael, because this is very important, and I want to finish this when we come back from our break. Can you stick with us, Michael?
I sure can.
Okay, stick with us. We'll finish that up and come back from our break. We'll talk about childhood alopecia. If you're on hold, hang tight. We'll try to get to all your calls here when we come back. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. All right, we're back on The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Michael in Minnesota. Michael, you there, my friend?
I am.
Okay. Did you ever hear of a process called triangulation? You ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Triangulation is something that they use when they want to determine where somebody's making a cell phone call from. They'll find different cell towers, and if you find 3 points, you can form a little triangle, and you can find out where the fourth point is. Or if you find 2 points, you can find out where the third point is. What I'm trying to say is, by collecting the dots, by collecting different symptoms, we can form a picture, a better picture. We can triangulate a picture to find out what exactly is going on in your child's body. With just the alopecia, alopecia with just the baldness, we're really resorting to guesswork. So it's very important that you find other symptoms. The digestive tract is usually a suspect, and if we can find some digestive problems, that really helps. If you don't notice anything, that makes it, we can still do it, but that makes it a little bit more problematic. So step number one, look for digestive triggers, food intolerances, food allergies, problems with bowel movements, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. These are easy to spot because your child will complain, or you can spot them through her bowel movements. So that's the first thing that you want to do. Anything that activates her stress response system will make it more difficult for her to go into building mode, and hair growth is part of building mode. Digestive triggers can cause a stress response, or any kind of illness can really cause a stress response. You mentioned an antibiotic injection. That can cause a stress response as well, although that should subside if she's healthy overall. So I wouldn't blame it on that, although it could be an initial trigger. It may have caused a problem in the first place. Now, another thing an antibiotic injection can do is it can throw off her intestinal bacteria, and that in turn can throw off the digestive system, and that can cause a stress response. So first thing you want to do is you want to find other symptoms. Look to the digestive system first. Before we went to break, I was telling you about hypothyroidism. It's very unusual for a child that young to be hypothyroid, but it is a possibility. Hypothyroidism tends to follow issues with blood sugar and issues with the digestive tract as well. So once again, we come back to the digestive system, but you also want to check out, have a look at blood sugar problems. Hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, as I was saying before we started taking phone calls, low blood sugar can also activate a stress response. So you want to make sure that she's not going into hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. Any diabetes in the family? Any blood sugar issues in the family? Michael?
No.
Okay, so more than likely that's not going to be an issue. That's probably not going to be an issue. The next thing that you want to think about is nutritional deficiencies. Now, if she has any digestive problems, again, that can cause problems absorbing nutrients, and she can run into problems with nutritional deficiencies, especially with the building nutrients. And the building nutrients are, unfortunately, nutrients that are difficult for the body to absorb, especially protein, essential fatty acids, and zinc. And zinc is probably the single most important anabolic mineral that you can ever use. If she's not using zinc, get her on zinc today. Now, how much does she weigh? How much does your daughter weigh?
About 50 pounds.
I would be getting 10 or 15 milligrams of zinc a day. Essential fatty acids, use the Ultimate Essential Fatty Acids from Longevity. They're a wonderful product, maybe 1 or 2 capsules a day. See if you notice that she complains about bloating or gas or any kind of digestive issues when she takes her essential fatty acids. Can she take capsules?
No, if they're chewable, yeah, she doesn't like the large
then
fatty acids.
Stick a pen in the Ultimate EFA and squeeze it into a protein smoothie. Get her on a whey protein smoothie if she can do whey. But be very vigilant to how her digestion is, how she feels after she does her protein and after she does her fats, because malabsorption of both of these food groups can lead to problems with building and with growth, and certainly can cause alopecia. Last but most certainly not least, the B complex is related to hair growth, especially the B vitamin biotin. You'll get those in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, and luckily the Beyond Tangy Tangerine tastes great. So you can use the BTT as a good source of, actually it has some zinc in there too, so that might be a good way for her to get her zinc as well as her B complex. I should also tell you there is a fungal infection that occurs sometimes in kids, and that can cause alopecia, baldness, but once again, fungal conditions are usually related to problems with the digestive system. So it seems like any way you slice it, you're going to come back down to some kind of digestive condition, and that would be where I would be placing most of my attention. The secondary issues of nutritional deficiency, fungal infections, stress response, hypothyroidism, problems with blood sugar, these are all secondary to issues with the digestive tract. But you got to collect the dots before you can connect the dots, and it's going to be very, very important for you, Michael, to try to find other symptoms. Remember that the baldness issue is not the problem. It is a manifestation of the problem. Something is breaking down inside the body, and it's very important to figure out what that breakdown is. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find that is connected to the digestive system. And by the way, it wouldn't hurt you to get on the night. Whoever told you, I think Dr. Glidden, told you about the nightly essence, and that was a very good choice. The nightly essence is a wonderful source of good bacteria for the digestive tract for all digestive issues. Everybody will benefit from that nightly essence. It's a wonderful product. Next to the BTT, it's my favorite longevity product. Does that help you at all, my friend?
It does. What about the selenium? How much selenium?
Selenium is, you'll get the selenium in the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, and given that she only weighs 50 pounds, 100 micrograms of selenium, which you'll get in the BTTs, should be plenty of selenium for her. Selenium is more like an anti-stress mineral. It's not specifically for hair growth, but it will help balance out any kind of stress issues, and it's a super, super important supplement. I would use the BTT to get my selenium. For her, that is. So
should we use the full Healthy Starter Pack, or do we need the Osteomag?
The Healthy Starter Pack is not. The Healthy Starter Pack is a great idea. The Healthy Starter Pack is the Osteomag, the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, and the Ultimate EFAs. But the Ultimate EFAs, you're going to want to stick a pin in there and squeeze it out because she can't. They're big capsules, and she's not going to be able to use the capsules. The Osteomag isn't going to hurt her, but it's certainly not going to have the same kind of benefit as the Beyond Tangy Tangerine and the EFAs and the Nightly Essence. But look to see if you can find some other symptoms. You know what, Michael? If you send me an email and put your phone number on there, you and I can work together on this, and we'll get to the bottom of the problem, okay?
I'll send you an email with pictures.
That'd be great. And don't forget to put your phone number on there so I can get back to you, okay, Michael?
I will.
All right, buddy. Good luck with everything. Thank you for calling. All right, moving on. Halaina in New York. What's up, Halaina? Where in New York are you, my dear?
Upstate by the Capitol.
Okay, so you missed out on Sandy.
Yeah.
Or did you get hit a little bit? You probably got a little bit of it.
No, we're just feeling repercussions with gas, conserving gas.
Oh, okay. Are you on rationing out there?
No, they just told us no unnecessary driving because it's being diverted.
Okay. Now, you got hit with Irene there a couple of years ago, didn't you? Was that?
Yeah.
You got hit
that
with
was
Irene. All right, what's going on? How can we help you?
Well, at first I thought it was a simple question because I purchased Beyond Tangy Tangerine, loved it. I can't afford it every month, so I try to figure out what the heck I can get by on. And I had consulted with Dr. Sherry Rogers once, and she told me that cod liver oil was found to people that were using it didn't need dialysis if they were, insulin-dependent diabetics. And I said, well, that sounds pretty essential. So if I wanted to take Beyond Tangy Tangerine, and which I still can't afford, and I had to choose between the EFA Plus or cod liver oil, could I interchange those one? And I probably should tell you the reason I also have concern about health is that the long-time ones are diabetes, celiac disease, thyroid, hypothyroid, and then infringing in the future, but I refuse to accept it, and so I don't have symptoms, is lupus and Sjogren's.
Okay, well, they're all related. They're all kind of basically the same thing. As I was saying to Michael just before you, the body is either breaking down or building up. Anabolic or catabolic, in breakdown mode or build up mode, net in the black or net in the red. You are net in the red, and that's all you need to know, my dear. We got to switch that around to get you net in the black. We got to figure out how to get you building and not breaking down. So the first thing you want to do before you even consider any nutritional supplements is you got to correct the celiac disease. You got to correct the digestive issues. If you take your EFAs or your cod liver oil, either or both, but you got fat malabsorption, not only are you wasting your money, but you're going to make matters worse because you're going to end up with diarrhea and you're going to end up losing even more nutrients.
Oh, no, celiac is definitely under control.
Good,
I don't touch anything.
Good deal. So you have no your digestion is, you got that taken care of.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the second thing is the thyroid, because if your thyroid is messed up, you're not going to be able to absorb as well. So I would be personally working on the thyroid before I did anything else. An essential fatty, if you had to pick one supplement, and I hate to tell you just one supplement, because the BTT is probably the one thing that you want, but if you want to know the difference between EFAs, and it's a good question actually, between EFAs and cod liver oil, the Ultimate EFAs have a full spectrum of the essential fats. Cod liver oil not only does not have a full spectrum of the essential fats, it just has one tiny piece of the omega-3 spectrum, and that is the DHA and the EPA. So I'm not a big believer in cod liver oil as a fatty supplement of first choice. It does have some good stuff in it, and this is such an important subject, Halaina. I wish we could complete it, but we're running out of time, and that's all I can talk about it today. So why don't you give us a call tomorrow, and we'll talk about EFAs and cod liver oil, okay, ma'am?
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it. We'll put you up first in line. Thanks so much for your call. All right, that's all we got time for today. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Check out my website, brightsideben.com. Take a look at the shopping cart and the Join Now link. Stay tuned for Alex Jones next. On most of these stations, we'll continue talking about anxiety tomorrow. That's all we got for you. Take it easy, folks. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye for now.